Everything started with a question that shook people from the very first second. What if everything they believed about holiness and church leadership was about to be challenged? Pastor Monique Walker had stepped into a new chapter, and you won't believe how quickly things began to change around her. She launched a church that flipped old expectations upside down. And let me tell you, the moment she opened those doors, something felt different. People said it looked revolutionary. Others whispered that it looked controversial. And this is where it gets interesting because the reactions didn't wait. They started the same night the announcement dropped. Her name was already known for bold sermons and strong stands on holiness. For years, people watched her walk onto stages with a fire that made some feel inspired and others feel uncomfortable. But what made this story different was the timing. She had just stepped into a new season, and destiny took an unexpected turn when she revealed that her new church wasn't simply a new location, it was a whole new way of doing ministry. Before anyone could settle into their seats, conversations started buzzing online. People argued, supported, doubted, and questioned. It was clear she wasn't following the old church playbook. She was writing her own, and the craziest part was that nobody knew where this story was heading. As the doors opened on launch day, the atmosphere felt emotional. Some came with excitement, some with curiosity, and some with eyebrows raised, waiting to see what she would do next. The church looked different from the moment people walked in. Traditional pews were gone. Instead, open seating filled the room, making everyone feel closer to each other and closer to whatever was about to come. The setup looked modern, but each item had a meaning, which she later explained was tied to spiritual growth and moral discipline. But here is the shocking part. The entire place felt like it was built to make people think about themselves, their choices, and their faith the second they sat down. Her sermon that day didn't sound like the usual welcome message. She didn't soften her words. She didn't warm the crowd up slowly. She went straight into holiness, discipline, choices, and accountability. The tone was piercing and direct. People sat upright, not sure what she would say next. Some looked inspired, some looked nervous, and some whispered that they hadn't heard a message like this before. Every point she made felt like a mirror being held up in front of the entire room. Some people described feeling like they were being pulled out of their comfort zone with every sentence. As the service went on, she explained that she wasn't building just another church. She was building a community where people would not come to sit quietly. They would participate, question, and challenge themselves. She wanted them to talk to each other, hold each other accountable, and reflect on their daily lives. This idea surprised many longtime followers. Some loved it, some weren't sure, and some were simply confused. They felt the energy in the room, but weren't ready for the level of expectation she was placing on them. Let me tell you, people walked out of that service talking nonstop. Some said it felt sacred, others said it felt intense, and a few said they felt exposed, like the message had reached into their private thoughts. Yet, even with all the confusion and emotions, almost everyone agreed on one thing. Her connection with the crowd felt different. She didn't speak like someone above them. She spoke like someone who lived the same struggles. She shared her failures, her lessons, her doubts, and her turning points. It made people lean in. It made them trust her. But it also made them wonder where she was planning to lead them, because it was clear she had something big ahead. People felt drawn, nervous, excited, and unsure all at once. And then, just as people thought the story was settling, destiny took another unexpected turn. A few minutes before ending the service, she gave a hint, just a small hint, that a major challenge was coming for the church. A challenge that would push people further than they had ever been pushed before. A challenge that would change how they lived their daily lives. A challenge that, according to her, would expose who was ready for holiness and who was only pretending. That one hint was enough to send the congregation into whispers and social media into speculation. People spent the entire week talking about that hint she dropped at the end of the service. Some said she was planning a spiritual experience. Others thought it might be a new program, but you won't believe how wrong everyone was. When the following Sunday arrived, the church filled even faster than before. People came early, sitting forward in their chairs as if they didn't want to miss a single breath she took. And let me tell you, the moment she stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent in a way that felt heavy, almost like the air itself knew something big was coming. This is where it gets interesting because Pastor Monique Walker didn't start with worship, prayer, or even a greeting. She started with a challenge. She named it the Holiness Challenge. And the craziest part was that it wasn't a simple activity or a motivational idea. It was a full journey, structured, strict, and deeply personal. She explained that the challenge would require weekly evaluations, honest reflections, and public accountability moments where people would talk about their progress. But here is the shocking part. She said it wasn't made to make anyone feel ashamed. It was designed to help everyone grow together, like a team stepping into spiritual training. Some people nodded with excitement, ready for something bold. Others swallowed hard because they knew this wasn't going to be easy. As she spoke, whispers moved through the congregation. Some people were thrilled. They said this was the push they needed, but others were scared. They felt like their private struggles were about to be placed under a light they weren't ready for. A few members even exchanged nervous looks. They had never seen a church do something like this. What made this story different was how quickly it divided the room, not in anger, but in emotion. Some felt awakened, some felt exposed, and some felt both at the same time. The mixture created an electricity in the air that no one could ignore. The challenge began that same week. Groups were formed, mentors were assigned, people met in small rooms, nervous but willing. The first round of reflections hit people harder than they expected. Members were asked to talk about habits that weakened their faith, choices they regretted, relationships that distracted them, and private struggles they had kept hidden for years. People cried, some stayed quiet, others shook while speaking. Let me tell you, no one expected the process to be this intense. One congregant said it felt like looking in a mirror they had avoided for a long time. Another said the challenge felt uncomfortable but freeing at the same time. Footage from these sessions began appearing online. Short clips of people sharing their stories. Wiping tears or describing breakthroughs went viral within hours. Some viewers praised the honesty, others questioned the pressure. And then destiny took an unexpected turn when national attention landed on the church. Suddenly, people who had never heard of Pastor Monique Walker were posting reactions, giving opinions, and arguing. Social media exploded. Supporters said she was brave and revolutionary. Critics said she was too intense and strict. The comments were endless, and the more people talked, the more the views increased. It seemed like everyone wanted to know what this church was doing. Inside the church, the emotional weight grew each week. Some people felt their lives changing. They felt clearer, stronger, more focused, but others struggled. They wondered if they could keep up with the expectations. They worried about failing the challenge. They whispered doubts in the hallways before sessions started. But even with fear and pressure, they kept coming back. Something inside them kept pulling them forward. Some said it was hope. Some said it was conviction. And some said it was simply because the process made them feel alive in a way church hadn't before. Things kept intensifying until one session changed everything. During a reflection moment, a longtime member broke down in tears, admitting a struggle they had kept buried for years. The room froze. Pastor Walker stepped forward, and what happened next became the moment people kept talking about long after the session ended. She confronted the issue with honesty and compassion at the same time, pushing the member to face the truth while holding their hand. People said the moment felt raw, powerful, and unforgettable. Clips of that exchange hit social media instantly. Thousands watched within hours. But here's the shocking part. That moment wasn't the end of the story. It was only the turning point. As the Holiness Challenge continued, the atmosphere inside the church became even more intense. Every week, people arrived with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. Some walked in feeling ready to face themselves, while others carried the weight of doubt and fear. You won't believe how raw the emotions got. Pastor Monique Walker didn't just ask people to reflect privately. She made sure everyone participated openly, creating a space where honesty was non-negotiable. Let me tell you, for many, this was unlike anything they had experienced in a church before. This is where it gets interesting. People who had been quiet for years suddenly shared stories of habits, relationships, and choices they had hidden from everyone, even themselves. The craziest part was that while some members were shaking with fear, others were glowing with newfound clarity. They described feeling as if a heavy weight had been lifted. Each session was designed not just to confront sins or mistakes, but to teach people how to change step by step and to support each other in the process. And yet, some of the newer members struggled. They whispered about whether they could keep up with the expectations, wondering if this level of honesty and accountability was too much for them. But the ones who stayed quickly discovered a strange sense of community. People connected on levels they hadn't imagined, forming bonds through vulnerability. As weeks passed, the program began to attract more attention online. Clips of members sharing emotional breakthroughs went viral. Viewers from around the country watched people cry, laugh, and reflect, and they couldn't stop talking about it. Supporters praised Pastor Walker for creating a real, honest church experience, while critics warned that the pressure could be harmful. What makes this story different is that no one could ignore it. Everyone had an opinion, and everyone was watching. Even inside the church, tension grew. Some people thrived under the challenge, while others felt overwhelmed, wondering if they could meet the high expectations week after week. Then came a moment that shook everyone even more. During a group session, one member admitted to a struggle that no one had anticipated, something deeply personal that had haunted them for decades. The room went silent as Pastor Walker spoke to the member, not with judgment, but with a forceful kind of compassion. She pushed them to confront the truth while also offering guidance and understanding. Let me tell you, the intensity of that encounter left many in the room speechless. And the craziest part, a short clip of that moment leaked online, instantly sparking debates across social media. Thousands commented. Some called her revolutionary, others called her too harsh. The video spread like wildfire, and suddenly, this local church was a topic of national discussion. Even as the public buzz grew, life inside the church didn't stop. The Holiness Challenge kept pushing people further. Members who had started the program, unsure of themselves, began to show signs of change. They reflected more deeply, prayed more intentionally, and supported each other like never before. Yet, with every breakthrough came another test. Pastor Walker introduced exercises that required confronting old fears, admitting long-held mistakes, and making difficult decisions. Each week, the challenge seemed to get harder, and members felt themselves being transformed, sometimes painfully, sometimes joyfully. Destiny took an unexpected turn when members realized that this church was not only changing their faith, but also the way they saw themselves, their relationships, and their purpose. And just when it seemed like the challenge had reached its limit, Pastor Walker announced a special session, an event that would change everything for the congregation and for those watching online. A session designed to confront the toughest obstacles and bring the deepest breakthroughs. It was the moment everyone had been waiting for, even if they didn't know it yet. When the special session began, the air inside the church was electric. People whispered to each other nervously, wondering what would happen next. You won't believe the energy in the room. Pastor Monique Walker stepped onto the stage, calm but commanding, and let everyone know that this moment would test their courage, honesty, and faith like never before. Let me tell you, no one was prepared for what was about to unfold. She reminded everyone that holiness was not comfort, it was commitment. It was not about appearances, it was about transformation. And this is where it gets interesting. She challenged the entire congregation to step beyond fear, to confront the habits, relationships, and choices that held them back, all in front of each other. The craziest part happened when members began sharing stories that had been hidden for decades. Tears flowed freely. Some admitted mistakes they had never spoken of. Others confessed fears they had carried silently. Each story brought gasps, hugs, and moments of pure vulnerability. Pastor Walker responded to every confession with a mixture of empathy and unwavering guidance. She didn't allow excuses, but she didn't judge either. Let me tell you, the intensity was unlike anything the congregation had experienced before. People said they felt both exposed and safe at the same time. And what makes this story different is how quickly the energy spread beyond the church walls. Clips of these moments were shared across social media, attracting viewers from around the country, sparking conversations about faith, leadership, and accountability. Then came the moment that truly changed everything. A longtime member, someone respected by many, stood up to share a deeply personal struggle. The room went silent as Pastor Walker engaged with them, balancing honesty and compassion in a way that left everyone in awe. Destiny took an unexpected turn in that instant. The member's story and her response went viral. People online debated, supported, and criticized, and suddenly this small church was at the center of a national conversation. The attention brought both admiration and controversy, and yet inside the church, it created something new, a stronger, more connected community that was learning what it really meant to live a life of holiness. By the end of the session, people left transformed. Some had cried, some had laughed, and all had reflected deeply. They described the experience as both challenging and life-changing. Social media exploded with posts calling it revolutionary, intense, inspiring, and sometimes overwhelming. Critics argued that it was too strict, too emotional, or too demanding. Supporters called it a spiritual awakening, a bold new way to practice faith in a modern world. And let me tell you, the conversation wasn't slowing down. This church had not only transformed lives inside its walls, but had also forced a nation to rethink what church, holiness, and leadership could look like today. Even after the session ended, Pastor Walker's message continued to echo. Holiness required courage, accountability, and participation. Faith was not a spectator sport. It demanded action, reflection, and honesty. Congregants left with renewed purpose, feeling challenged yet supported, inspired yet grounded. And the craziest part, many admitted that they were scared to continue the challenge, but they couldn't stop because the experience had changed them in ways they didn't expect. Every story, every confession, every breakthrough had built something extraordinary. A community willing to face itself, and a movement that could not be ignored. By the time the week was over, the church had gone from a local experiment to a national phenomenon. Social media, news outlets, and faith commentators were all talking about it. People debated, questioned, and applauded. Pastor Monique Walker had achieved something remarkable. She had turned controversy into transformation, fear into courage, and curiosity into commitment. And the truth was clear. This was only the beginning of a story that would keep unfolding. touching lives in ways no one could have imagined.